once in a while, a fish might swim by here in the back, and you can enjoy looking at the aquarium. What I would like to talk about today is mainly two things that kind of join together. That is how I choose where I'm going to go on some of these international trips that I go to. I'm recording this in like mid-January, but the videos that are going to start coming out next week are from November and December. I think I've got about 10 or so videos from Spain coming up. I've got two from Singapore, and I've got about 10 or 12 from Indonesia. So over the next couple months, there's going to be a very good amount, somewhere over 20 videos from three countries. And after those videos, usually those types of videos usually come out, I get a lot of questions either on YouTube or on Instagram relating to how I find these places, what goes into finding these locations, what kind of flights I choose, how I pick my flights, how I pick my hotels. And if I was going to talk about all of that, I could probably make like a 1 hour video. But what I want to talk about today is there's two things. One, how I find the flights and how I select the flights. And then number two, how I use Google Maps to see if the places that I'm going to, well, not really the places I'm going to, the places that I'm considering going to, if I think they could possibly be good locations to fish. So let's go ahead and let's jump into my computer and let's take a look at how I do it. All right, so for flights, the first thing you're going to do is go to Google Flights. So flights.google.com. Actually, usually it even puts your home airport here, which for me is Miami. And what I like to do is to leave the where to blank. I don't, if I have a destination in mind, obviously I'll put it in. But the way I find some of the better deals to some destinations is by leaving this blank. And then the best thing is if you have an open schedule where you don't even need to put a departure or return date. I, however, don't have that luxury. Uh, all my trips are usually on a very set schedule. So we're going to go over here to April, and I have a some time off coming up in April around Easter. So I am going to select April 17th to April 24th, a 1 week trip. We could always adjust this later, but that's just going to be a starting point. And then we're going to come over here and we are going to hit the explore button. And what that is going to do is that is going to open up a map, and it's going to show you the prices to a whole bunch of different destinations around the country or around the world. So it's loading a little slowly right now. I think that is because I have the screen recorder on, but this is the map of the US. So a whole bunch of destinations: LA for 200, Austin for 126, New York for 141, Chicago for 119. So for that 1 week, I could go from Miami to all these places for some fairly cheap prices. But what I would like to do is look at the Caribbean. So we are going to scroll over and zoom in a little bit because I would like to take a trip to the Caribbean at some point over these next at some point this year. So hopefully I can do it here over spring break. But San Juan, Puerto Rico, 177, even though that is still part of the U.S. Montego Bay, 335. Let's see, Aruba 366, St. Lucia's expensive at 803, Antigua at 589. But what I would like to zoom in on is Curacao. Curacao here is at 445, and that is actually a location I have been thinking about going to. So even though it's slightly more expensive than going somewhere like Aruba, we're going to click on it and I will show you what comes up. So we have all these flights that pop up here. I'm going to hit view flights, and then it's going to open up a new window. I usually have a preference to American Airlines just because they have a hub in Miami. I have some status with American Airlines, so I like to fly them when I can, even if I pay a little bit more money, because in the long run, I do get some nice perks, like some upgrades. I was actually upgraded to business class flying from Tokyo to Dallas last year, which was a really nice experience. But yeah, let's just click on this $500 flight from Miami to Curacao, and then we are going to click on this 2 o'clock flight from Curacao back to Miami. So at basic economy for $517, we got ourselves a 1 week trip to Curacao. Now that is actually on the expensive side. So a lot of people wonder how I'm able to afford some of these trips, and S- part of that is just because I'm able to find some really good deals. So keep this in mind. Curacao was $500 to $600. A lot of these islands in the Caribbean were about the same price. But I am now going to zoom out, and this is zooming out very slowly because I think my computer is slow due to the screen recorder recording right now. But we are going to hop over here to Southeast Asia. If this could load any faster, that would be greatly appreciated. It is loading very slowly, and I'm going to zoom in just a bit here. All right, so if we look at this, Hong Kong, $800, Manila, Philippines, 1100, almost 1200, Singapore, 1100, Jakarta, Indonesia, 1300, Bali, 1300. So St. Lucia in the Caribbean was 800. And then you can get all the way to literally the opposite side of the world for, 11, 12, $1,300, even less in a couple of these cities. So there's not always a direct correlation between distance traveled and price paid for some of these flights. Like you can find some really cheap flights, at least on a per mile basis, to Southeast Asia using this method, depending on the dates. Now, if you try to look at these dates for, let's say, June and July, I'm not going to do that right now for time's sake, but you're going to find that all these flights are probably going to be about twice as expensive. So if you have a flexible schedule, your dates are open, you can find some really good deals. And let's take a quick look at Europe as well, because Europe is probably also going to be fairly cheap and affordable, especially compared to like the Caribbean. Yeah, so let's look at this here. So London, it looks like it is 467. So it's cheaper to fly Miami to London than it is Miami to Curacao. Barcelona for slightly under 700. What else is there? Germany, Berlin, less than 500. Rome for less than 700. Malta for about 700. So all these places here in Europe are either slightly more expensive or about the same price as flying to Curacao. So that is basically how I am able to find these flights. I kind of just use Google Maps to explore, and when I find a flight somewhere that I like, I will usually just use that as a starting point to explore a little bit more. Yeah, look at this, Madrid for 580. That is a pretty good price. What else do we got here? There's usually some pretty cheap flights from Miami to Spain, but look at this, Canary Islands for 700. So it is fairly easy to find some fairly affordable flights to really anywhere in the world, as long as you're leaving from like a major airport somewhere in the US. So that's going to do it for how I find the flights. And now let's look at Google Maps at how I find some actual fishing spots. All right, so we are here on Google Maps. So I showed you how I use Google Flights to find good, affordable flights to locations that I might want to travel to and I might want to fish at. And then once I find that, that's kind of my first screener. Once I find a flight that I would think I would like to go to, whether it's a good price or I think it might be a good location, then I come over to Google Maps and actually try to find fishing spots at the places I'm going to be flying to. So we are now on the island of Curacao. We're going to zoom in here a little bit to Willemstad or whatever this city is called. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I don't speak Dutch. But this seems to be like the major city on the island, probably where I'll be staying or somewhere close to there. Looks like they got a lot of hotels. But I'm going to click on the Street View little logo down here, and then we're going to get all the blue lines. Now, anywhere you see a blue line, that is where there is a 360-degree view of the area. So I'm going to click on this blue line here by the water. And this looks like it is a very good fishing spot. Looks like it's a nice paved sidewalk. We got a little seawall there, and I am not seeing any no fishing signs, which is always a good sign. Sometimes I'll open these up, and the first thing I see is a no fishing sign. And then on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes I'll click on one of these and I'll see people with fishing rods actually fishing, which is always a good sign. So this looks very promising. This looks like a good area that I could go to and spend a day, maybe a day and a half of fishing at if I choose to go to Curacao. So we are going to close that, and I'm going to move around the island here a little bit. We're going to look for another spot. Let me zoom in here, this looks like it might also be a good location. This looks a little bit inland. I wonder if I could see the water from here. What's this? That is a parking lot. Let's move this way a little bit. So yeah, I could see a little bit of water here, but this does not look like a good spot. It might be a good spot, but I don't think we're going to be able to see the water well enough to make that determination. So we are going to close that, and I am going to scroll around here a little bit more. I'm not sure what I just clicked on. Let's close that. Sometimes my finger slips, but I would like to click on this because this looks like it could, is that what I clicked on last time? This looks like it could be a good spot as well. So I'm not sure exactly how I would get to this spot. I would have to find a path or something, but this looks like it could also be a good spot. Oh yeah, looks pretty good. Looks like a little salt marsh habitat, probably a little brackish. So yeah, this looks very promising. So maybe we can go and spend half a day fishing here. That looks pretty good. So I am going to close that. Let's zoom and scroll around here a little more. Now we're leaving the city a little bit. Let's head back into the city. Let's click on this spot right here. Let's see what this looks like. This looks like it could also be a little promising. Uh, Probably allowed to fish here, I would think. Don't see any no fishing signs. And if you've traveled and fished in enough different places, you'll kind of get the feel of what areas you're allowed to fish and what areas you're not. And this one looks pretty good. Also looks pretty brackish. Probably a very similar type of habitat to the last spot I clicked at, where we'll probably get a lot of the similar species. So not sure if I would go to both of those spots. I might just pick like one of those spots and that'll be it. And then let's zoom and scroll a little bit more. Let's zoom into here. Let me just click right there. This should be a little more beachy. Okay, this is actually, okay, this area looks pretty nice. I thought it was going to be more beachy, but it's looks like it's like cliffs. But this could also be a good spot to fish at. You might be able to reach some coral reefs if you cast out a little bit from here. Looks like there could be some deeper water accessible close to shore, so this could also be a very promising spot. Let's close this. Let me maybe find one more spot. Let's click this right here. Looks like another bridge area. Let's see. Oh, okay, and this is not what I thought it was going to look like. Oh yeah, looks like we got some very clear water. This is more beachy. Maybe even at low tide, you might get some tide pools in this area. Some of these rocks might become exposed and there might be some pools around them. So maybe a good location to do some micro fishing. And let me do one more spot. Okay, I don't know where I am now. Where are we? There we go. All right, let me just click on one more kind of randomly here. I have done a little bit of research on Curacao, which is kind of how I know I might want to go there, and this does not look like a good spot for me to go fish. So this would not be a spot that I would want to go to. Most of the first couple that we looked at were probably pretty good. This one probably not so much. So you find some good spots through this method. You also find some not so good spots through this method. But that's just kind of how I start. And a lot of these spots do end up working out pretty well. And once I'm physically in a location, I could usually even find some better spots than I can on Google Maps. Once you're in an area, you can usually get a feel for the land and find some good spots that way. But yeah, that's just how I use Google Maps when I'm looking at destinations I might want to travel to find some good fishing spots. All right, guys, so that's going to do it. Hope you learned something. If you ever want to take an international trip, hopefully you can use some of the tips that I showed in this video. And as always, if you have any questions about really anything fishing or travel related, leave me a comment, message me on Instagram, send me an email, get in touch with me somehow, and I almost always answer them. So yeah, hope you guys liked it, and I will see you next time.